Just for those people who don't know, a lot of people have heard of a carnivore diet, but what is a hypercarnivore diet?
So I started using Hypercarnivore because I had guests on my channel like Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Sarah Salvador, and others who started using the word hypercarnivore.
Yeah.
I've also heard Ken Berry use the word super carnivore, and I wasn't entirely sure what that meant. But if you just type into Google, what is hypercarnivore, it'll say that it's an animal whose diet is 70% or more animal foods. So I like saying that because when I was saying that I was eating carnivore, then I would have people ask me questions like, well, do you ever use seasonings, or you're not allowed to have coffee, or you can't have, and like trying to say like carnivore meant zero plants. And I honestly don't care what you want to call me. You want to call me keto, you want to call me paleo, whatever you want to call me. I call me Lillie Kane. So I
Yeah.
just eat the foods that make me feel the best. But for the sake of like people being able to feel like they're a part of a community, or understand that, yes, I don't eat salads every day, so I'm not going to be eating like a vegan diet. So I started using hypercarnivore just because I do eat a lot of meat. Again, it means 70% or more animal foods. So for myself, about 95% of my diet currently is animal foods. And then the rest of the foods come from the plant kingdom. I think it's even different from if people hear about ketovore or keto, because I even will eat things like a sweet potato. I'll eat things like fruit. So I personally don't care if I'm in a state of ketosis. I also have a lot more protein after in each meal, where I think even if I were to test my ketone levels, I probably wouldn't be in a state of ketosis after each of my meals, because of just, I eat so much protein and not enough fat. So yeah, that's kind of what a hypercarnivore is. It's like you eat a lot of meat. It seems counterintuitive to what people would think. You would think hyper would mean more extreme carnivore, and maybe that would mean beef only, but I didn't make up the word. I didn't make up the definition. I also think it should be called a hypo or a semi-carnivore or just animal-based, but I just was using the word that other people I've been seeing online use as well.
I definitely think hypercarnivore is a great way to describe it because the first time I heard it was from you on your YouTube channel. And then I Googled it and I thought, oh, this is perfect. This describes the way I eat too. Because I always say animal based and I feel like people don't like always understand what that means. So they either think we're like fully carnivore or, and even though we do eat some fruits. So I thought hypercarnivore was actually a really nice way to phrase it. Because if you think about it, whether you're carnivore or hypercarnivore, it all falls under the animal-based umbrella. But I just liked how specific it was.
Yeah, animal based almost feels like it's just a jab at plant based.
Kind of, right? I also, people say, I thought you just started saying you're hyper carnivore because you're a hyper. I'm very excited. I'm very active. That they're like, you're a hyper carnivore.
That makes sense. I must say the thought actually also crossed my mind because you're always so like seem so happy and you have so much energy and I thought, oh, it actually suits you, the term.
Hyper.
I do get a lot of kickback. I do get a lot of people who will leave messages like, stop trying to make things up. A hyper carnivore isn't a real thing. Like, I did not make up the definition, but no matter what I would call myself, like I was saying I was carnivore, people had a problem with that. I was saying I was keto, people had a problem with that. So at the end of the day, you know, people can call me whatever they want to call me. I think that sometimes when we put the label on what we eat, it can trap us and put us in a box where we feel like we have to only eat these foods. And if someone asks, well, what does a hyper carnivore diet mean to you? Then we can, I've started doing where I interview guests on my channel where I start asking them, what is a carnivore diet? And they all have a different answer. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Nobody knows.
Yes. And then people get very critical. So if they see something that they don't think is part of a carnivore diet online, they just criticize so much and say, oh, you're not really carnivore because you do this or because you add seasoning to your food. And I just think it's so unnecessary. And I've
Yeah.
even seen some people where maybe on their Instagram handle it said carnivore in their name. They just decided to change it because people kept criticizing them for trying other foods or having anything that contained plants. So that's been quite interesting. I've been noticing that a lot recently.
Yeah, I made a video last year with the 10 reasons why I don't eat a carnivore diet. And it was just so surprising to me how many individual DMs and messages I was getting from people saying that exact thing, where they're like, I seriously couldn't relate more to the fact that like so many people have been saying like coffee isn't carnivore or something like that. But the majority of people who I know who are even carnivore influencers drink coffee. And I don't drink coffee just because, I mean, like we already said, I'm hyper. But if I were to drink something like carrot juice every day, that would definitely not be carnivore, but coffee gets the pass. And it's like, what? So I think it just gets confusing. And I don't want to make things more confusing. If people are like, hypercarnivore confuses me even more.
Yeah.
You know, I just eat foods that make you feel really good. I tend to think that for me is a lot of meat. And then whatever else after that is low inflammatory. But also on top of that too, I like to think of things as just weighing out the pros and cons. Because if someone has the pro of eating apple pie with their kids and it's their birthday, I had even people reach out to me saying, I never thought that I could eat apple pie with my kids because otherwise I was going to live a short life. And it's like, do the pros outweigh the cons? Yes, if eating apple pie every single day is probably not going to help you feel very good. You're probably not going to look very good. You're probably not going to smell very good. But if you have apple pie and you're going to create this beautiful memory with your kid, it's their birthday. I say, okay, well, there the pro outweighs the con of maybe not feeling the best that day.
Yeah. I always like to ask, is it worth it? So if it's worth it for you to eat it, then go ahead. Because you have to decide for yourself. If you know, okay, a particular food has a certain side effect on your body, and you're willing to take the hit just for that one time. So maybe if your skin will break out, but you're happy to deal with the breakout just to have that memory with your kid, that is your choice. Like if it's worth it to you, that is your choice. I think Saladino said this long ago, like when I first started watching his videos. He said that it's all about what is the highest quality of life for you. And then if you do want to eat something, but that's gonna be what has the high is gonna make your life better in that moment, then you go for it. So I love that from the start. So I've always kept that in mind.
Yeah, I definitely feel like everyone needs to try and avoid being dogmatic and proselytizing to other people, because it's obviously a very human instinct to want to sort of create this uniformity and we're all on the same page and we're all doing exactly the same thing. But we have to be a little more accepting and a little more understanding of other people will have other viewpoints and other ways, and things will be worth it for them and not for you. And so I think it's very good to sort of let people be and sort of just let people know what you're doing. And if they want to learn more, keep telling them. But it's not like you need to now force them. This is how you have to eat, and you have to eat X, Y, and Z.
Right. Well, and even on my videos too, I never say like, you need to start eating this way. You need to eat at 6 a.m. You need to eat 25 grams of protein. Like, no, it's like, this is what I'm doing. And it does get really tough because obviously, like, I want to help as many people as possible, but in the same sense, I understand that some people are just going to try to copy and mimic what I'm doing, which I don't want people to do either, because unless you're 5'2", 110 from the US with my genes, with my background, with my history, with my medical blood type and all these things, like it's just no one's going to be exactly the same. And we're not going to get it from the same farm. We're not going to get it from the same soil, the same, the whole, there's so much that goes into health and it can get confusing. But I think that for me, part of the fun in life is the challenge and going through these different confusions to find more truth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you can inspire people and they can try what you're trying if they're inspired by you. Well, for instance, I've been eating like fruit with the meat and everything, and I also like have some goat's dairy. And then I was watching one of your videos and I saw, okay, well, you mainly eat berries. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. Like, still have fruit, but just go to berries and stop eating some of the higher sugar fruits. Because I do want to transition to like a lower sugar diet. Um, just because I have PCOS and you tend to get insulin problems. And so I've been finding it a bit daunting just cutting out everything. So I thought, okay, maybe starting with just berries will be a good transition. So I do think it's good if people can get inspiration from what you're doing.
Yeah, well, and I personally don't care what I don't care what kind of fruit it is. I don't even care if it's a high sugar fruit. I just don't have access to good quality fruit. So here where I live, all the fruit in the grocery stores is rotten. It's mold. It's shipped from Nicaragua, Guatemala, so it's been picked like a month old. And so if I had a fruit tree in my backyard, if I had a vegetable garden, if I had fresh produce that I know wasn't sprayed with glyphosate, Roundup, herbicides, pesticides, all those different kinds of chemicals that impact my gut microbiome, yeah, I don't. And for me, I also think they're quite a bit of money in comparison to all the vitamins and minerals I can get from meat. For me to spend $2 on an avocado when I could get half a pound or like a pound of beef for closer to the same price, it's like the value to me is just not there. But for specifically for people, if they have things like PCOS, fatty liver disease, obesity, diabetes, I would try to have less sugar. But I'm very active. I think if I had some grapes, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I just don't have access to that kind of quality foods. And whatever food it is, if it's beef, if it's eggs, if it's dairy, if it's fruit, if it's veg, I just want to have the best quality of those foods.
Yeah, we're quite lucky here in South Africa that we actually export to a lot of countries. So if we get a lot of farmers that grow some really good quality stuff here, and you can get it pretty fresh. But yeah, even now, more recently, I've tried to be more conscious of like where the fruit's coming from and try to be more seasonal. So yeah, I don't want to put a label on it, but I'm like kind of seasonal carnivore where in the winter I'll have like zero fruit because there's no real fruit in winter supposedly. And then I'll try eat the fruits that are seasonal and local and like freshly harvested and or from a farmer's market or from whatever, I can get.
Yeah, I like the seasonal idea.
Me too. And I think even just like innately, I don't know if you guys experience this either, but right now in the summer, or I don't even know if it's summer where you are, but
winter here.
Okay. So right now for us, it's the summertime and I'm just so hot and I'm thirsty and I'm just like craving something sweet, something juicy, and I want fruit now. Whereas in the wintertime, I'm like, give me like a hot stew, give me like a crock pot roast or something warmer and salty. But I can just see just with the summer, how much I've been wanting more fruit versus in the wintertime, I just really don't care for it as much.
I think it's good to listen to your body then, and it just shows you that instinct with the seasons changing, like what you actually crave and want, and then it makes sense to have fruit. Because often in summer you're more active as well, people in general, because you're outside more, you're in the sun more, and then you can also like have more of it. And then in winter, like I also like crave a lot less fruit in winter. So that's quite interesting. Okay, so I also wanted to know about your muscle building journey because I love weight training, and I know you've been like trying to build muscle, and I just want to know how that's going. And I know you've posted about people thinking like, oh, you can only build muscle when you have carbs, and I just want to know what your experience has been with the hypercarnivore diet and building muscle.
When I was in college, I was a track athlete. So that was where I was really more taught about nutrition and what to do to build muscle and to be fast and to have the best performance race. You want to have lots of pasta and you want to bulk and you want to have all those grains and carb load before race day. I really wish I would have known what I know now, obviously, so I could have compared and contrasted and see how my performance would have been different. But that's what I was always taught. You want a carb load to build muscle, to bulk, to have good performance, to be stronger. And then I believed that for a long time too, because when I first switched to eating more animal-based carnivore, hypercarnivore, I lost a lot of weight. And I think a lot of it was just water weight that I was holding on from having the glucose and the carbs, but I had a really hard time building muscle. And then I spoke with Dr. Anthony Chafee. He's a carnivore guy. And I talked to him just one-on-one, being like, honestly, I don't think it's possible for me to build muscle eating just meat. Like, I think I do need some carbs. And he goes, and sometimes you need to hear it from somebody else, because my fiance told me this over and over again, but Dr. Chafee goes, are you really putting in effort and putting in the work at the gym? Are you really maxing out? Are you really pushing yourself? And that's where I reflected and thought, okay, no, if I rated myself on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being I put max effort, I'm sweating, I am like, I couldn't move another muscle if I tried. No, I was definitely at like a 3. So when I started rating myself and really asking myself, how much am I putting in at the gym? that's where I saw the biggest muscle gain, but then also adding in more food. And it doesn't, not carbs, just adding in more food. And because that's the two things that we need to build muscle. We need food, we need to move our bodies. So yes, it was just a gradual process. It definitely doesn't happen in like a week. Some people will say, if I do this exercise protocol, then when will I have the muscles? Like, well, the goal is to continue doing this forever, because then if you just do it for a month and you build the muscles, if you don't continue, you're going to lose and you're going to have to start all over again. So I think that it takes a lot of time, but adding in more food slowly over time, and then rating yourself and really bringing the intensity, and the last two reps are the most important.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I'm quite looking forward to like exercise training even harder, like once I've recovered after the baby is born, because right now I can't train as hard as I used to. But no, I just loved seeing that when I first heard you speak about building muscle, and I think he also said to you like eat muscle to build muscle, with the whole eating meat thing, and it just made me so excited. I was like, oh yeah, one day I'm gonna go hard on training like that again. I'm
When's
still
the
doing
baby
weight
due?
training. Sorry?
When are you due?
15th of September, so soon.
First one.
Yes.
Are you
First
nervous?
one. Yes.
You're
There's
good.
like
You're good.
7 more weeks to go, roughly. But we're excited. But yeah, no, I'm gonna be one of those people that like straps the baby to their chest and then does squats like that and incorporates the kid in the weight training. But we will train. That'll be fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Then you can make podcasts about how you're using baby weight to build muscle. That'll be great.
That'll be a fun one. Well, he studied human movement science, so he's like super knowledgeable about exercise and training. So it's kind of like living with a personal trainer. So I quite like it. So I can ask him questions like anytime and he checks my form, and that's, I don't know. I don't want to abuse it, but it is nice to have him here.
It's the benefits of being married to me.
Yes.
That's like my fiance too. He knows, he takes us through the whole workout. People will ask me, what's your workout schedule? I'm like, I don't know, ask Bryce.
Well, it's been working.
Yeah.
So yeah, my next question, and Jonathan wanted to know this, is have you been experimenting with raw organ meats?
I do not experiment with raw organ meats. I've tried heart and kidney and liver, and I've tried from bison, from elk, from deer, from lamb, from beef, from pigs, from chickens. I've tried a bunch of different kinds from a bunch of different animals, but I did try raw liver one time, and honestly, it was just so disgusting. I think anybody online who is saying it tastes delicious, I don't know about that, but
Yeah.
it's like if you cook it too much, it becomes very rubbery and not good at all. But it's like the perfect, if you just sear it. I think also just like my mind around it, it's kind of like a weird thing we're not used to, because I used to think you absolutely have to cook your eggs. I would never eat a raw egg. Now I will absolutely eat a raw egg. So I do think it does take more of a mental game than actual, like, it might not taste that bad, but I do not do raw organs. Do you guys?
He does, I don't. He actually quite likes the raw liver. He's been starting to eat that lately.
For me, it's like sashimi with a different flavor.
You add salt.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe if I added salt, it would be different with salt.
Maybe. I tried a piece of it and I just thought, no, this is not for me. And well, I was also pregnant at the time, and I thought maybe in the future I'll give this another try, but for now, no. But I have been struggling to eat organ meats. I do take organ supplements. I take liver supplement. I know you supplement with that as well sometimes.
Yeah. So do you have, is it slimy? I mean, it's got to be slimy and cold and
Yeah,
chew
so
it, or you swallow it whole?
the first bite is always like intense, because you go from having no liver in your mouth to having a lot of liver in your mouth suddenly. But then I find that like each bite after that's just sort of like your palate's adjusted, and then it's just almost like you can taste that first initial like nice umami flavor from the liver, and then that's quite nice. And then only once you've stopped eating it and you're left with only the aftertaste, then you realize, okay, yeah, there's kind of like a taste there that is, obviously not favorable for everyone.
Does it ever have a kind of a sweet taste to you?
Tiny bit, yeah.
Yeah. I find if I don't have liver and then I have it for the first time in a long time, it'll have a sweeter taste. But if I have it back to back to back to back, it kind of turns more metallic-y and irony tasting. And to me, I just signal that from my body as like, you've had enough of that nutrition.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, I've definitely tried to overdo it where I've tried to have liver every day and then for weeks I just really don't want it. So it'd be
Yeah.
better to just like spread it out more.
Yeah, I try to follow my intuition and just try to listen to my body. And yeah, the raw doesn't really make a difference, but for me, the cooking's that extra step. And I just found like the less I cook it, the better I liked it. And so eventually I was just like, okay, I saved myself time, don't cook it, just cut it up, put some salt on it. Easy.
Have it raw.
Well, I have some heart right now thawing we're going to have for dinner. Maybe I'll try a little bit raw. I have been thinking about trying it raw again, but yeah, I mean, just even the thought of it, sometimes I'm like, ugh.
Yes.
I always just find it fun to experiment on all sorts of things. So I'm
Yep.
always trying to cut out other things, add new things, try things a different way. It's always fun.
Yeah. Well, I've heard once that if you don't like a particular food, you should have like a tiny block of it every day for like 30 days, and then maybe you'll probably start to like, well, either like it or just be okay with eating it. So I thought maybe that would be the strategy one day. Just eat like a tiny block of raw liver every day just to get the taste and then see if over time I warm up to it.
That's the worst part of it, the first little block.
Yeah, well, and I think, I mean, I'm pretty tied between whether I think people have to have organ meats or not. I don't think people have to have organs to be healthy. I do think though, if someone's eating a more limited diet and they're not having as many fruits, as many veggies, even if they're not having, like, for instance, I have salmon, sardines, pork, chicken, like I have a bunch of different kinds of animals in my kind of diet too. So I think if I was having very limited animal variety, that I would definitely want to consider having organs and eating more nose to tail, having the blood, having the bones, having the organs, having the milk of the cow, but having the whole animal. But yeah, I don't know what my full thoughts are if people should have them all the time or how often. I think that if someone really hates the taste, there's so many other foods out there. Eat eggs, eat beef, eat something else that can give you the same nutrition. I don't want people suffering and just like gagging down their food. That doesn't seem like a very fun life.
No, not at all.
Yeah, we sort of say like, oh yeah, organs are a good idea, but if you're not going to eat them as is, then rather try and supplement if you want to get the benefits from eating them.
Yeah.
Yep.
For me, because I tend to deal with skin problems because of the PCOS, and I know vitamin A can be very beneficial for that. That's like the only reason I really want to eat more liver is to see what it will do to my skin. But that's an experiment for another time. Not now.
Well, and the vitamin D can help too, I would think.
Yeah, and Dr. Sarah Zaldivar, like I heard her say that if you have a lot of vitamin A but not enough vitamin D, that can make your skin break out. And the reverse. So if you have a lot of vitamin D but not enough vitamin A, that can also make your skin break out. So I thought something like liver or egg yolks is actually quite perfect because it has both.
Yep. Well, you guys probably have I don't know where, I would think you have more sun where you are, maybe, but for us specifically where I live in the US, there, it's called like the 36 parallel. Well, we're above the US at a certain point. We actually don't get, we only have the vitamin D UV that actually absorbs from October to March, and the rest of the year we don't actually, October to March, no, opposite, March to October.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the year, if the chickens aren't getting the sunlight, they're going to have less vitamin D in their egg yolks than if they were out in the sun all the time. Same thing with any animal that would have a liver, that if they're not getting exposure to vitamin D, they would have less vitamin D in the liver. So yeah, you guys are lucky because you guys have some quality stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some pretty intense sun here. So yeah, I was watching the other day and I saw that you said that someone told you, oh, you should eat junk food again just so that you know how good you have it, just to sort of create that contrast. And I was sort of wondering, what did you think about that logic now that you've had some time to
So the person who actually asked me this was was a guest I interviewed over a year ago. And so he had asked me at the time, it was very interesting. This young man was from Canada, was actually testing different diets, and he was having doctors go with him and track his mind, track his exercise performance, track his blood, do all these different markers of health. So he did vegan, then he did keto, then he did carnivore. And he said that even because he wasn't trying to lose weight, he wasn't trying to heal autoimmune, he wasn't trying to help with mental health. He was just literally a healthy guy, just trying to test and see what was the best, most optimal diet. And he found that he was like, I really do think that carnivore makes me feel the best and have like the most mental clarity, less stomach pain. Like, I just think it keeps me really full and satiated. And so I really do enjoy it. But sometimes I find that the longer I continue to eat this way, the more the benefits diminish, and I don't appreciate how good I really feel. Do you ever feel like you just want to eat a bunch of garbage so you can feel like trash one day, and then you can appreciate all the good stuff? And I just straight up told him no. So that was like over a year ago. I was like, nope. Why would I ever purposely want to put myself in pain? Now that I've thought about it more, I understand where he's coming from more, where I do forget that I did have it's not until people ask me questions like, what are the benefits you've experienced? And then I have to think back, oh yeah, I used to have joint pain. I used to have acne. I used to have bad menstrual cycle cramps. But I still don't really want to feel like trash ever. So I think I'm still sticking to my guns.
Yeah, I would do that too.
Yeah, and I was almost thinking like you should tell him that, oh, if he really wants to feel crappy again, he can do something like a cold plunge or a sauna, or you don't have to use like chemicals in junk food to make you feel crappy. You can do something hard to make you feel crappy.
And then you feel
Absolutely.
great afterwards.
Absolutely, yes. Or, I mean, even where we are right now, it's 105 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if you guys are Celsius and how that converts, but it's hot. And just coming inside the AC, I'm like, wow, thank you. But then in the wintertime, when it's cold and negative 10 degrees, then I'm like, oh, I appreciate the hot heat. So it's nice to have those change of seasons to appreciate the good ones and the bad, but I don't think I would want to do it with making my brain hurt, my stomach hurt, my sleep not be great, my face not look great. Yeah, to me, it's not really worth it.
It's not worth it. Now, I know you had some problems with dandruff in the past. He did as well, and his pretty much like went away when he changed his diet and stopped using the anti-dandruff shampoo and just went a bit more natural with that. And so that I found really fascinating. So I wanted to ask about the dandruff situation, and I know your scalp was also itchy for a while. And what did you find helped the most with that? Because a lot of people don't believe me when I say like what you eat can have an effect on your skin and your scalp and your hair. And so I would just love to talk to you about that.
I also was the same person where I was like, no, there's no way that my teeth yellowing or my like crust, and when I wake up, crust around my face or my smell, like that is from food I eat. That's just how a normal human being works. But then when I switched, I wasn't actually even eating carnivore. I was just eating less sugar, and I was eating more keto. My scalp started burning like crazy, and I couldn't figure out for the longest time why. And then finally my fiance was like, you have been putting these chemicals into your scalp for 15 years, where no wonder why your scalp's burning. But I was like, but why is it burning now? It never has burned all these other years. But I do now realize, oh, it's because how I changed what I was eating, where my scalp was clearing up. Now I'm putting something on there that doesn't need to be on there, and it's going to give me that fiery burning sensation. But even once I stopped, I was really nervous to try not having the dandruff shampoo too, because when I would travel, when I would go to friends' houses, I would bring the dandruff shampoo, because if I didn't have it for just one day, my dandruff would be out. So I was reluctant to try not having dandruff shampoo, but then I finally did it and it didn't come back, but my scalp started itching. I, for a long time, was eating 6 eggs a day, and I never thought that eggs were the reason why my scalp was itching. But the more and more eggs I had, eventually the itching moved into redness going down further down my scalp, where I kind of had a feeling it was eggs, because I was just like we were talking about with the liver, when you don't feel the taste, when it's kind of not tasting well, it's something in your body saying, please, no more. We're telling you we don't like the taste. And so I finally was just having eggs and hearing my body say, it's not good. So I stopped having eggs, even though I was very nervous that if I didn't have eggs, I'd be lacking so much nutrition, because I think eggs are just such a superfood. But I mean, immediately, a day, 2 days later, the burning and the itching had just like subsided so much. To this day, I still do have itching, and I haven't had eggs for 6 months. I did try having some egg yolks here recently in the past month. I just really wasn't feeling the taste of them, so I still haven't been doing them too much. But the itching, I think now is more of a habit, because I was itching my scalp for over 1.5 years, where now if I'm stressed, it's just like my habit to like do that thing. And I think other people, they may pick skin around their fingernails, they might rip hair out, they might smoke a cigarette or something else when they're stressed. And so I know that now I think that the itching has just become a habit in me. So I just reach for it whenever I'm like stressed out, but that's just something I think I have to work on more with my mind, less of the food.
Yeah, it's hard to stop those habits. I'm one of those people that will like play with their fingernails and do stuff like that if I'm like anxious or stressed. I actually had a thought, because we watched a video about when people's hair fall out, and often it's because of having a tight scalp. And so it was Paul Saladino interviewed this guy about hair loss. I can't remember his name, but they were talking about how good massaging your scalp for like 10 minutes a day is for preventing hair loss. So when I heard you on a video saying like, oh, you do that to your scalp the whole time, I was like, well, at least you're massaging your scalp by doing that.
I would actually think I would be creating like a bald spot over time. So I'm glad to hear this, because now I've been like tricking myself every time I'm like reach to do it. I'm like, no, you don't want to have a bald spot. So that's kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, maybe, treating it more like a scalp massage instead of just scratching it is a better way to do it, because it can be hard to completely stop something like that.
Yeah, Will, from what I've learned, he's got a very good video going into detail about how people inject Botox in these muscles around their head in order to relax the muscle, and then that helps bring their hair back.
Yeah. And then, they spoke about how good scalp massage is. So we've actually been trying to incorporate that just for fun, actually.
Why not?
Yeah, awesome. I like watching the What I've Learned channel, so I'm going to look that one up too. This is great.
Yeah, it was posted quite recently. You should definitely look at it. And so what is your hair care routine like? Do you use shampoo on your hair still? Or I showed him the video earlier about you using egg yolks on your scalp, that experiment. It was quite funny. But that
was prior to thinking I was allergic to eggs. So obviously I wouldn't be putting them if I thought I was allergic.
No, so I was wondering, because I think that was like 8 months ago or something. So I was wondering how things have progressed since then in your hair care routine.
So I have been using, it's just a soap called Everyone soap, and it's just supposed to be very low toxic, minimal chemicals. And so that's all it's the only soap we have in the house. So it's the soap we use to wash our hands, to wash our body, to wash our face, to wash our hair, to wash our toilet, to wash our dishes. It's the only soap we use because it's just one of the least chemical soaps. And that's pretty much it. So I don't do shampoo and conditioner. I just do the Everyone soap, and I wash my hair maybe 2 times a week.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. I love that idea of training your hair so you don't have to wash it as often. Just because you end up putting so much on your scalp. Like I also try to use a shampoo that doesn't have a bunch of added things to it, no sulfates, nothing like that, because as you also mentioned, you're putting all these chemicals onto your body. So everything we use, like dishwash soap, washing powder, everything is like a way better alternative, like whatever was the best that we could find. And like, so people will use fabric softener, but we use vinegar instead, and it works really well. But I was curious, like he stopped using shampoo completely like long ago.
Short hair helps though.
The short hair helps. But like long hair like ours. I know Carnivore Yogi, you know her. she stopped using shampoo and her hair looks amazing. And I'm like, one day I will be brave enough to try that experiment. I just can't leave the house for 2 weeks because usually, like they say, your scalp gets like really oily and then it gets better. And I've seen a lot of people online do that whole no shampoo thing. And like I know she mentioned that sometimes she'll put apple cider vinegar through her hair if she feels like she needs something. But her hair just looks amazing. But she also wanted to just stay away from all the chemicals. And I've always been very tempted to try that. It would just have to be when my mom is away on holiday because she can't stand it if my hair looks oily. So I can't see her in those 2 weeks. The poor
Oh, it
woman.
sounds like you're giving your mom a lot of gray hairs in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's just with that. Like usually, like we're like, on Gilmore Girls, how tight they are. That's me and my mom. We're like very, very close. She doesn't like it when your hair looks oily. And she won't like necessarily say much about it, but you just know, usually wash your hair before you go there. But I'm still very curious. And when he stopped using shampoo, we knew my mom would be the test to see if it worked. And she didn't notice it. And she's like, oh, his hair looks super clean. And I told her, well, he hasn't been using shampoo for 3 months. And she was quite surprised. And so she's accepted that. So,
But you wash it with water.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Just not shampoo.
Yeah, not shampoo.
And that helped his dandruff as well, because he wasn't stripping the moisture from his scalp anymore.
Yeah, and the only soap I use is well, in South Africa it's like, well, roughly translated, it's called farmer soap.
Boership. It's a tallow soap.
Yeah, so it's a fat-based soap with
Yeah.
very simple ingredients, nothing really complicated about it.
Yeah, they literally make the soap using tallow and some sort of soda, and it's like our ancestors way back in the day came up with it. And I've actually posted about it online, and then people are like, oh, where can we find this? And I'm like, well, I don't know. This is like something that South Africans use sometimes. But you can find recipes for it online. And I just love the idea of using like just this tallow soap. And so we use that.
Keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Yep, simple is sustainable, and simple makes you have freedom to do other things with your day.
Yes, I love that idea. I don't know if you know who Tim Ferriss is.
Yep, 4-hour work week.
Yes, but he talks a lot about simplifying things, and he said once he has the sign in his house that just says like simplify, and ever since then I've wanted to get a sign like that, because with the animal-based way of eating, it's such a simple diet, and I've just found way more freedom in that, because I'm like a binge eater by nature. Like I've been binge eating since I was 5, but ever since eating this way, like I don't have the urge that much. So it's like simplifying my diet was actually the answer, and just like eating more animal foods. And it's just so nice to not struggle with that. And I just really cling to that idea of simplifying things.
Yeah, there's so many other things we have going on in the day. We have the kids, the work, the social events, the what do I wear? Like there's so many things that we have to make decisions on in a day. And even though they're small decisions, it does turn into like decision fatigue, where it is nice that when I go to the kitchen, it's not like, what am I going to eat today? I know what I'm eating. That's one less thing I have to think about.
Yeah. And when you go food shopping, like imagine if you had to go through all of the aisles in the like supermarket and just think, what am I going to buy? No, you just go to the meat section, you just get what you need.
Yeah, and when we were overseas, we were actually overwhelmed with how many options there are for all the different types of foods you get. Like here, there's maybe one little sort of shelf dedicated to chips, where in America we saw that there was a whole aisle dedicated to chips, and I just don't know how you guys make all those decisions, because there's too many brands. And
because when we were there on holiday, we were like, oh, we're going to go to Walmart, just get some snacks, because we went like kayaking after that. And we were just standing there so overwhelmed, like, what do you get? We ended up actually getting pork rinds.
Yeah.
And that was before we were like animal-based. We were like, well, this seems like the best option. We don't know what chips are good. We'll just get the pork rinds.
Yeah, I have friends from Thailand or from other countries who they would say they go to the grocery store aisle and they're like, a whole aisle for cereal? Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't go down those aisles, obviously. So it was just the other day we were at Walmart I was filming that video. I don't know if you saw on Instagram, but the chips video. And I saw that they had these different cereals that was just like cookies, that's cereal.
Yeah.
Just cupcakes, that's cereal. Just Skittles. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And that's what people eat for breakfast, and that's how they start their day, and that's just not good. I've watched Ben Bickman talk about how the first meal of the day shouldn't really be something that's carb heavy, preferably protein and fat, because your insulin levels will just spike way too much. It's better to just like ease into it and have carbs later in the day. And then if you think about it, if somebody has the cookie cereal and that's their breakfast, they're just like hardly getting any protein, and it's just spiking their blood sugar from the start. It's no wonder people are insulin resistant.
And tired all the time and unmotivated and depressed and on medications and gaining weight
and struggle to concentrate in class. And
when they're younger they misbehave, and we just say like, oh, it's the terrible twos or whatever age group they are.
Yeah
I do not want a kid that's on a sugar rush all the time. Actually, something funny happened. So when I was at the doctor for one of my scans, the baby was moving a lot, so they were struggling to take photos. And then the doctor asked, well, did you have caffeine or sugar before you came? I said, well, I had some banana, but just because last time there were ketones in my urine and I got in trouble for that, so I was like, this time I don't want to deal with that. Let me just eat a banana before I go. And then the doctor's like, well, the baby's kind of on a sugar rush. And I thought that was so funny. And then the one day I was feeling anxious, and so I was like, I just want to eat something to feel better. So I had an apple and I had like a spoonful of honey, because we didn't have any other food in the house, to be honest, at that time. And then the baby started kicking like crazy and it hurts, and she was so busy for like 20 minutes. And it started like 20 minutes after I ate. So I was like, I put this child on a sugar rush while she's still in my belly. And so now I'm just trying to be like super careful. But it just really made me think, like, I never thought like, oh, you can put the baby that's in your stomach on the sugar rush just from eating like an apple and honey. But that was quite funny. I haven't done that again. But it was a very interesting experience. And it made me grateful that the whole pregnancy I've been like hypercarnivore, eating a lot of meat and having fruit, but not a ridiculous amount.
Well, yeah, I feel like having the fruit and the honey is like the best way you could ever have glucose. Otherwise, people are having the Snickers bar with the Dr. Pepper and the whatever else. And then, no wonder why nowadays so many kids are just having ADHD, having malformations, having different struggles already just walking into the world. They already aren't set up for success because of what they were fed and what they grew up already having. So it is, I don't like saying it's sad, because it is just what it is, and I don't like feeling sad. So
yes,
there's other options for people.
There are other options for people. Like, I know this child, when she was younger, we went camping with her family and she wouldn't go to sleep, and the parents couldn't understand why. But at 8 o'clock at night, they gave her like a whole bottle of like soda, like sugary soda, and one that had some caffeine in it. And they were getting like angry with the child for not wanting to sleep. But I thought, but half an hour ago, you gave the child, well, it was like 500 milliliters. I don't know what that is in ounces. But you gave this child so much sugar right before bed and caffeine. It just doesn't make sense. Like, parents can save themselves a lot of suffering by just not doing stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just very difficult to convince people that, these things are actually an issue. I don't know if you have any tips on how to try and convince people just to pay a little more attention to what's going into their body.
Yeah, well, I don't think that people have to be perfect. So will you ever see me drinking soda and eating chips and having candy bars? Probably not. But and I think that it's really tough trying to be a leader too, because it's like, I want to show that no, you don't have to be perfect, but at the same time, like, I don't want to eat those foods. So it's like, But I think the best first step for people is just to remove the processed foods and having whatever fruit, whatever honey, whatever maple syrup, whatever vegetables, dairy, fish, eggs, meat, any real whole food. I think that sometimes man or human tries to outsmart nature and thinks that we're smarter than if people believe in God or however we came to be, smarter than whatever created all of these things naturally. And so we try to put all these science chemicals and concoctions. And what really frustrated me when I first started learning more about health and nutrition is that I wouldn't have never in a million years said that I'm addicted to sugar, because that just sounds so bad. No, I'm not addicted to sugar. But when you start learning more about how these chemicals impact your brain, alter your mood, and therefore if you're having more depression, you're having low energy, that impacts it just is a domino effect through your whole day. So now you have no energy. So now you're going to work less hard. So now you're not going to get the promotion at your job because your boss isn't going to promote someone who has an attitude or isn't happy and who is slow and who's not productive. And so in the same sense, if you're trying to attract a mate, find a man, a woman, then if you have anxiety, if you feel like you're not beautiful, if you just don't have the confidence in what you're doing, then you're not going to bring that and attract that into your life. So I think that food impacts all aspects of our life. It impacts our health, our social situations, our mindset, it impacts everything. So I think just like recognizing, we don't have to be perfect, but food is like our batteries. And what are you going to plug into yourself to make you live your most abundant life? Because I like to live a life where I wake up pain-free, filled with energy. I feel really, really good. And if people don't want to have that, by all means, that's great. It's a choice. Again, like you were saying, people get to choose what they want their outcome and what they want their day to be. But I think instead of thinking, okay, I need to be perfect and eat this perfect diet for the rest of my life, just wake up and say, today, I want to get good sleep today. I want to exercise today. I want to eat a good meal today that makes me feel good today. And just having the today kind of mindset is, I think, easier to wrap our heads around.
Yeah, it definitely makes it less daunting. Like somebody says, oh, I'm going to do this thing forever. That's usually quite scary and they give up. But if you maybe say, I'm just going to try this for a day or two, see how it goes. Or like I always hear people say, oh, they tried carnivore for 30 days and then they felt so good they didn't want to stop. But it started with them saying it's just going to be for 30 days or it's just going to be for a week. Mm-hmm. But I also think a lot of people don't realize how good they can feel because they're just so used to feeling bad. So sometimes you just have to get them to the point where they try something just for a short period of time to see, and then once they see the benefits, then they might want to continue. And it's also important to motivate people in the way that will motivate them the most, because not everybody cares that much about the way they look. But what if somebody's very career driven and you can tell them, hey, listen, try this and your focus might improve and you might end up being way more productive at work because you won't experience those afternoon blood sugar crashes. I know a lot of people do intermittent fasting, not because of the health benefits, but just because it helps them focus a lot better and they can get more work done. Maybe somebody is, motivated by looking good, so you can approach them with that. For some people, it might be your sleep might improve. Maybe it's somebody who really struggles with sleep. So I think whenever you're communicating with someone, just find out what they value the most. And, you can just give them information about, well, this could help you if you wanted to try it. Like, you don't have to say you have to try it.
If you want to try it and if you want to change, it's a very important one.
I always like telling people, like, do it as an experiment. And then they seem to be more open-minded about it.
Yeah, it's tough because even like I'm a younger person. So specifically people in their young to mid 20s, even teenagers, let's talk about them, like to tell them like, no, you're in pain right now. If you would have told me and approached me and said, Lillie, you're in pain, I would have been like, you don't know me and no, I'm not in pain. And not that I hit rock bottom, but I do think that a lot of people, unfortunately, are going to have to hit rock bottom to wake them up to realize, okay, I have to make a change. I would just like for other people to not have to get to that rock bottom where they're paying that expensive medical bill, where they're on these medications that are very hard to get off of, where they're having to go to counseling, whatever it is. I would like people to not have to go through and hit rock bottom, but people are going to come to it when they want to come to it. So just lead by example, just be positive, be kind. I think like, even of course I get negative comments, people are trying to tell me, I'm giving misinformation about sunscreen or killing people. And then I'm like, okay, like I just respond with kindness, because then it's a reflection on them and on their character. You're going to keep bullying me. You're going to keep being negative to me, whatever. Like I can still live my day and live a happy day. You're going to mope and be angry all day over some random person you don't even know.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they'll always say like, "Oh, you're doing X, Y, and Z," and they'll give you zero extra evidence. They just say, "This is because I heard it. This is the way it is."
Yeah.
And it is a little bit frustrating to get people like, criticizing without actually trying to back up that criticism even a little bit.
And you never know, maybe you'll say something, or and somebody who hears something on a video and currently they feel like, oh, that's misinformation, but maybe down the line their health like deteriorates a bit, or they hear some other information and they think maybe that Lillie girl had a point, maybe I was wrong. So it's like even just planting the idea in someone's head can sometimes be enough. And I'm pretty sure with the number of people you reach, like enough people respond positively and are inspired. So it doesn't really, there will always be people that aren't happy with what you're doing. I heard once, if you're pleasing everyone, you're lying to some people. And I always like that idea. So it's like, just don't try. But even if people respond negatively, it could even maybe have a positive effect down the line and just make them think about it a little.
I like your approach, and you're saying more than the one I was told. My family says if you have haters, you're doing something right. And I'm always like, okay. And the times when it's like very quiet and I'm not getting any hate, I'm like, I'm not doing something right. So I gotta keep being louder.
Yeah. I don't know. I quite enjoy your videos online and how you approach them, and like on TikTok, and you're like so happy and bubbly, and so that I think is a good way to respond. If somebody does give you like negative like comments, to make this video where you just seem so happy and respond to them, is quite a good way to do that.
I like to, sometimes I'll comment back to people if they're like, oh, whatever they say, I'll just respond, why did you say that? And I've had so many people have the time to like think about like, why did I say that mean thing to this random stranger? It's because I'm having a bad day. I'm reflecting on my life. I'm having a moment. So then I'll have people apologize, and they'll be like,
oh, that's
wow,
cool.
I didn't think you were going to respond. I didn't think you were going to read it. Oh, please, I read everything.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh, what I do, if somebody responds and you can see they want to argue, then I just hand it over to him. Because usually like I'll post on our Instagram and stuff like that, but he loves debating people and he's really good at it. And he's just like, then I'll be like, oh, somebody commented on this post, and then because we agree anyways on what should be said, then he'll like type these long paragraphs, and sometimes he'll like get into these debates with people, and I quite enjoy that. So whenever somebody's like really being annoying online, I just put Jonathan on them. I'm like, you take over. This one's for you.
I make an effort to try and get them to see some sort of logic.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, it feels like a failing effort, but I try anyway.
I just find it very amusing. So that's like the reason why I tell you to do it. He's good at debating and bringing in facts and like just coming with like really interesting arguments, like, oh, but have you thought about things this way? And you're a good person for that.
Yeah, I almost try and debate in questions. So then I'll say like, well, can you answer this question? And then they'll be like, oh, geez, I haven't actually thought about things in that much depth. Oh, okay. Then you can see they're kind of like, they don't have anything to argue about because they realize, oh, wait, I don't know much about this. And I'm kind of just arguing from like a bird's eye view, and that there's a lot more complication in the situation. And then they normally just sort of like fizzle out.
Yeah, I've seen you like convince some people to just start thinking about different things and thinking about things differently. It's quite fun to watch every now and then.
There definitely needs to be people like Jonathan who are taking the time to try and to put the information out there.
Yeah.
I give up on some people. I'm like, it's not worth it to me.
Yeah.
There's free content. You can look it up if you want to.
Yes.
Yeah, I've given up on a lot of people too.
But only after trying
Yeah,
for a
I do
while.
try at least for a bit.
Yes. Like, yeah, you just really care about giving people the right information. So even if they reject it, you're still gonna offer it to them.
Yeah, I feel like everybody at heart is a little bit of a truth seeker, and when you feel like you've gleamed onto a little bit of truth, you kind of want to share it with as many people as possible. But the one thing you got to learn is that it's impossible to get everyone to see the truth.
Yes.
Mhm. Right.
No, I like the idea of just putting the information out there and hoping like it reaches the right people. Even for me, like we don't have a lot of people that follow us online, but I've had people reach out to me who are pregnant right now, and then they feel like inspired from what I've been posting about what I'm eating. Because especially when people get through that morning sickness phase, and they're like, "Listen, what should I eat? What did you do?" And just from sharing your story and what you've been doing, it can help other people. So I've had quite a lot of women who are currently pregnant and want to be animal based reached out to me, and then it just feels really good. Like whatever you're putting out there, it's gonna like reach people who need the information. And I just really love that.
Don't care about the haters.
Right. The people who are ready to listen, they'll be the kind ones, or they'll be the quiet ones, and they'll be there. But then the other people, some people just aren't ready to hear information. And I don't even know if I have the perfect information or the right information, but that doesn't mean you have to be mean. So
Yes. Or maybe it's also like you say, like Bryce will tell you things, and then it's only when somebody else mentions it later on that it really makes you think. You mentioned something like that earlier. We've had that so many times where Jonathan will tell me stuff, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, I know. And then I hear it on a podcast from someone else, and then I come to him, I'm like, oh, so I've been thinking about this. And then he says, but I told you this months ago that you should do this.
yep.
Yep.
So maybe you just weren't ready for it at the time, or maybe it just wasn't said in a way that made you really absorb the information and think about it more.
Right.
So sometimes you can plant the seed and then maybe they'll hear it from somebody else and then really take it to heart. I just want to ask, where can people find you online?
I'm on YouTube, Lillie Kane. I'm on Instagram, Lillie Kane _ YouTube, TikTok, Lillie _ YouTube, Facebook, Lillie Kane. And I have a website that is just on all of those different platforms.
Nice. Yeah, people should really check it out. Like, I love your TikTok videos and your Instagram posts, and it's just really like often brightens my day. Your positive attitude really like rubs off on people, I believe.
Well, thank you so much. And it's been so nice connecting with you both, and good luck with the whole pregnancy. Last night we watched Nisha Berry's video of the pregnancy. So I was like, whew, like right now I'm like, you are a strong woman. You got this. Thank you both for the great conversation and the smiles, and for doing what you're doing and spreading the good message too. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, you too.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, you too. I look forward to seeing everything you do in the future and all the interesting people you're still going to talk to and interview. And yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Thank you. Best of luck to you all.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.